Fatherhood isn't easy, but in Autismland, it's a journey like no other. Join Mark de Grasse as we explore the highs, lows, and everything in between of raising children on the autism spectrum. With real stories, practical advice, and a touch of humor, we're here to navigate this unique journey together. For dads navigating life on the autism spectrum, you're not alone.
Hey everyone, I'm Mark de Grasse. Welcome to Dads in Autismland, where we talk to dads of autism and find out more about their lives and get some tips and tricks in terms of how to handle a situation when you're raising an autistic son, kind of what it's like to be an autistic father, and of course support these families who are raising these kiddos who definitely need it and also deserve it. So I have Scott Bisbee here. He actually has 4 kids. His oldest son, Alex, has been diagnosed autistic, and they actually found it out during COVID when they were having to homeschool and learned some things that actually led to kind of this path to diagnosing autism. And then also his youngest son, 2 years old, who looks like he's on the spectrum as well. So welcome, Scott.
Hi, welcome. Thank you. I really like what you're doing here with your podcast. It's really neat to see.
Thank you. Yeah, the response has been fantastic. I think a lot of times as autism dads, you kind of feel alone most of the time.
Yeah, I really like how the title is Autismland, because you feel like you're on another planet, another country from everyone else. It's mind-boggling.
It is, I always tell people it's like it's not something you like plan to go to either. So it's definitely a new experience. But I think there are a lot of good lessons to learn, and for you, you do have the neurotypical kids and then also the autistic kiddos too. So it's you're having to balance that. Well, we just kind of start there. What's it like? Having to kind of have the special needs requirement, but also just the standard, dad stuff you have to do.
Well, every day is a challenge, as you would know. My oldest, he's 12, and he's on the high end of the autism spectrum. I believe he scored 148 on the IQ test, so he's gifted. But with that, he also has PDA, which means, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it means pathological demand avoidance. So, for example, he has a hard time doing things that a normal person would do, like everyday life, like brushing your teeth, having a shower, stuff like that. And if you tell him to do things, he just kind of shuts down. And I'm still trying to deal with that, and it's very hard. My wife is a lot better helping him with things, but it's very challenging for her as well.
Oh, I can imagine. It's definitely, well, it affects the entire family is what ends up happening, because it's not just like, oh, let's just figure this out. Because if you do have, and I'm sure this is with your neurotypical kids too, where you could punish them differently. Honestly, it's like if they misbehave, they don't brush their teeth. You can say, okay, well, you can't watch TV, Friday night because you didn't brush your teeth again. What does it look like in terms of helping your son Alex if he isn't doing the things he should be doing because of the was it PDA?
Yeah. So if he isn't doing that, then you kind of have to parent differently. Like I learned with him, you have to kind of give something if you want something back. So you're kind of dangling a carrot, so to speak. So, like, if he hasn't had a bath in a few days, you kind of I'm like, well, you could watch screens while you're having a bath or whatnot, and
Mm.
that kind of helps them have a bath. But it's something I wouldn't do to like uh, one of my other kids. But like, yeah, it's very challenging.
No, I can imagine. Well, that reward system, I think a lot of
Yeah,
times with the, we do ABA therapy, and so that's
yeah,
helped a ton in terms of directing him and even just structuring the situation. So it's like, hey, if you do this and then this happens, and
yeah,
that seems
exactly.
to help a lot. So I know
Yeah.
you said that your 2-year-old as well as exhibiting some symptoms like the stemming. Do you think you noticed? I mean, is it similar to what you experienced when Alex was younger, or is this kind of like a whole new situation?
So this is kind of a whole new situation, but it's the same, if that makes sense. They both showed autistic, neurodiversive characteristics when they were younger. So Alex, he read the whole Harry Potter series when he was 6 years old.
Wow.
Like that's a lot of pages in those books, like especially for a 6 year old. So I knew there was something there when that happened. And my youngest right now, it takes him a long time to adjust. So he goes to daycare, and we have to get him ready an hour before daycare.
Mm.
Uh, like he goes. We have one of those playrooms with the swings and all that stuff. Because it really helps them regulate the moods and so forth. So like we have to put them on the swing for a bit and just play with them, and then gently coax them to get them ready for daycare. Like he can't switch into things fast, or else he'll have a total breakdown. And Alex wasn't like that. Alex just kind of kept things into to himself, and then when he felt comfortable, he would just blow up.
Mm.
And yeah, it's different, but it's the same. It's weird.
No, it's interesting. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like just those extremes, and then not being able to work around them like you would with your other kids. We have Declan, of course. Like if Declan had a meltdown for something that was like, I don't want to go, it's a
Yeah,
different conversation.
yeah. So, does Declan really enjoy junk food too? Like my son does.
Oh yeah, no. Well, Declan does. He's my neurotypical one. Damien definitely enjoys his junk food. He's pretty particular though. I mean, he has like his pancakes and
Yeah,
the chicken nuggets, of course. But he'll
yeah.
actually what's funny is he actually eats better than my non-autistic son a lot of the times because
Oh
you know
wow.
yeah, but Declan has like a sugar tooth. But Damien actually likes salts and he actually eats a lot of vegetables. Like he'll chomp down like all the bell peppers if he can. And it's probably a mix of that sensory type thing. Your
Yeah,
sons though, are they junk food oriented?
yeah. So Alex, he also has what's called avoidant resistance food intake disorder. So what that means is there's only particular foods that he will eat,
Mm.
and then could be in 24 hours or a week. If he has that again, he won't like it anymore. Or it could
Mm.
be months. Well, he enjoys that food, and then yeah, just a blink of a switch, he will not like that anymore. So that is a constant battle with us. Right now, he enjoys his ribs.
Mm.
He likes what do you call them? Meat sandwiches, and he used to like chicken nuggets, but he doesn't really like that anymore. And
Hmm.
it's just an uphill battle trying to get him to eat a lot because I would, this is bad, but I would say he doesn't eat 800 calories a day. It's a
Mm.
struggle to get him to eat a lot. It's a huge struggle.
Ah.
And the only thing that he really enjoys is junk food.
Mm. Yeah, no, I think it's definitely a well, it's interesting what you said about how their tastes change because I think that's
Yeah,
and we'll kind of get into the stereotypes of autism, but that is the perception a lot of times like oh they just like tater tots and chicken nuggets, but Damien does the same thing where he'll be like obsessed with a certain type of food and then all of a sudden he'll just be like nah I don't like that anymore and then he just won't eat it. We're lucky in the sense that he is always hungry. So we've never had to deal with the kind of like trying to make him eat. Like he is we literally lock up our pantry and our fridge because otherwise he'll be in there 24/7. But just in regards to the you're trying to get your son to eat, is it more like you just try to find the foods that he likes so he'll eat, or is there, any way to get him to eat?
it's kind of both. Like at first, we were trying to get him foods that he will enjoy eating, but uh, it it was a huge struggle and super painful for us. So uh, we'll basically kind of making sure he has his meals twice a week, and then we make stuff that the other kids like and that we enjoy too. So,
Hmm.
um, and there's foods that he falls back on. Like it's really interesting, but when he doesn't eat for like a day or two, he gets very, very moody. Well, anybody will if they don't eat, but he really enjoys his McDonald's. But
Hmm.
when we give him McDonald's, it kind of resets his brain, and he's back being normal. And it's like we do that every 2 weeks. It's a struggle.
Oh, yeah, that's tough. And it's really interesting to see how he reacts when he does eat, where it's like, okay, he's back.
Yeah,
But yeah, that could be well, especially when you're trying to accommodate the other kids. Like, what do your other kids
yeah,
think of the whole situation? Because a lot of times we were worried about it looking like preferential treatment to my
yeah, exactly.
non-autistic son. Like, oh, why does Damien get this? And we
Yeah.
always tried to combat that by, making sure that Declan got, some of his stuff too. And we always leaned on. Do you have any advice in terms of the balance?
Oh, advice. I don't think I'm the best, but advice I would give is just know that your other kids, they know that you're trying. I last summer this seemed uh they seemed to like this, but my Alex, he really enjoys going to my mom's to have a sleepover.
Mm.
That's the only place where he feels safe besides at our house. So he went to my mom's for a few days, and I took the other kids. We went to Calgary, which is a city south Alberta in Canada. We went there for like a weekend, and the kids really enjoyed that. So my advice would be like, yeah, just to do your best.
No, well, that's actually a great tip is that,
Yeah,
let them know you're trying because I think
yeah,
it's, the worst thing for us is kind of like, because we think like, well, Declan is the only other child we have. If we'd want Damien to be with somebody, it'd probably be with Declan ideally.
yeah,
And so we always try to, make sure that he's happy as well. And we try to put as much effort into him as we do with Damien, who's autistic. But like you said, it's tricky and it's a balance because it just takes so much more effort, to make them happy. In your case, just make them eat, which is really hard. Your younger son, the 2-year-old, does he have similar things in terms of eating, or is he good at eating?
He's really good at eating. But right now, like he was our best child that slept through the whole night. And
Ah.
then I listened to your first episode, uh, and I'm like, we are experiencing that right now. Like you said with Declan, he slept really good, and then all of a sudden he would like get up all the time throughout the night. Well, that's what we're currently experiencing right
Ugh,
now
that's
with
hard.
him. Yeah, and it's like he wakes up after every sleep cycle.
Mm. Yeah.
So,
So it's every three
well,
hours or so.
yeah. So we're learning how to adjust to that, but it's hard.
Yeah, no, I'd say probably of all the hard times, I think that the years, because we went through a solid like I think between like 18 months and 4.5, like he was just like that. He would just get up, he's awake, he's running around, and like there's
Yeah.
literally no escaping being awake. And I'm a light sleeper, so you could, my wife like rolls over funny, and I'm like awake. So, no,
Yeah.
even if she got up with him, I was still sort of awake for all of that time. So I feel for you because that's probably the most difficult. How are the other kids? Are they able to sleep through that, or do they get frustrated?
Surprisingly, they're able to sleep through that.
Oh, that's good.
There was a night, probably 2 days ago, where my youngest, he just yeah he had a really bad night, and I went in there, and he was doing his arm flapping, yelling hysterically, and I'm like, oh, my other kids are gonna wake up. This isn't good, but apparently they slept through it. So
No, oh, that's a blessing. Uh,
yeah.
Tell me about you mentioned, do you have a sensory room in the house?
Yeah, so this past Christmas, my wife and I decided to build a sensory room, and it kind of has like a rock climbing wall and like
Ooh.
a ladder pull-up bar, and we have like lights for it and those swings, and all of our kids love it, so it's good.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I think that's a excellent. Well, I think once you get kind of in it, you're kind of like, well, let's go ahead and invest, some effort into this because you're going to be spending that time somewhere. We used to go to, and actually, I want to ask you about the daycare too.
Yeah,
We used to go to. We actually had a really good gym next to our house when my kids were younger, and we were able to say like, oh, hey, he's young enough, even though he was already showing symptoms, he could still be, pretty much at a daycare. And so we would just go to the gym a lot. Like I was
yeah.
just worked out a lot. But no, that could be tough. Actually, you did mention that. So your 2-year-old goes, is it just a normal daycare or is it a special needs?
Y- y- Yeah, it's a normal daycare. We didn't tell them that he we think he has autism and all that, but so far it's going really well.
Nice.
Um, he probably has his issue here and there at the daycare, but yeah, they work really well with him. So yeah,
Mm. That's amazing. Yeah, we actually found one here in I think it was in Dripping Springs. I forgot the name of it. I'll have to find it. But they were amazing. And luckily a lot of times there is like certain, daycare personnel who have dealt with special needs and then they're
yeah,
kind of aware of it. We did have to stop that after I want to say it was 3, maybe 4, and then it was too much. Like his behavior was, not conducive to that environment. So I'm glad you're able to do that because that actually helps quite a bit. And I do think it's good exposure for both him in terms of like a normal situation and
yeah,
then also for
exactly.
the kids, the other kids at the daycare. Because a lot of times my wife and I actually had a nonprofit called Special with the Side of Mom where our goal was really to expose neurotypical kids to special needs kids to get rid of the stigma and the stereotypes and all that kind of stuff that, kids are just kids. They just see like, hey,
Yeah,
you're different. But the
yeah,
problem a lot of times is that they have no exposure to special needs. And then they are exposed to special needs in, say, in public, and they don't know how to react, and they also don't know how to feel about it because it's like, wow, you're different than anybody else I've seen. But for our other son Declan, it's actually been a real gift because he's able to. He's great with small children. He's great with other special needs kids, and it's been really good. In that regard, have you seen your other kids, your neurotypical kids? How are they? How do they play with your autistic kids?
Well, they love Nick, my youngest, my little guy. They play with him all the time,
No.
and they kind of learn to deal with Alex too, because it's funny because uh, Alex he doesn't really like people. He loves being in his own world. Like uh, he reads and he watches TV on his tablet. But every now and then he would pop in to see what the other kids are doing, and then he'll play with them for like 5, 10 minutes, and then he'll disappear again. But my little guy, which I think why he's good at daycare, is because
Mm.
he's very, very friendly. It just takes him a while to transition. Like even when he's at daycare, the instructors will tell me that if he's playing with, say, cars or dinosaurs or whatever, and they move on to a different activity, he is still doing playing with cars or dinosaurs, and everyone else kind of moves on. But they kind of adjust to that, which is good. So
Oh, that's neat. Well, that I think you're right. I think him having the siblings play with him probably makes that situation a lot better. And I think that's great advice too, because just the exposure part of it. Because a lot of times when you have the sensory issues in terms of the sensitivity, then
yeah,
a lot of these kids end up just at home all the time because they just can't handle being out among people. So I think that's a great way to kind of adapt them to it. And you've built a whole room for it, and the kids like it too. So I love that.
yeah, yeah. Thanks. I really admire what you're doing, having your own business, because I had a personal training studio for 8 years, and then we moved to a bigger city, and I was trying to start again, 2019, 2020, and that's when I noticed what I was saying earlier with Alex, that he had autism, and then trying to deal with that and trying to build my business. I was like, oh, I can't do this right now.
Oh no, I get it. Because back when, well,
Yeah,
you have a 2-year old and you have 4 kids total. Like that's a tough job. And with any small business, I mean, you get
yeah,
out what you put in. So if you're not out there hustling, and I was actually in fitness for about 10 years, so I know exactly what it takes to get your name out there, because you have to get people results, then you have to tell people
yeah.
about it, then you have to put together camps and classes, and it's a lot of
Yeah.
work. But I'd say don't give up on it after
Oh no.
your younger son gets a little bit older.
Yeah, well, yeah, I slowly started it up again probably a few months ago. So,
Oh, good.
and I'm getting some results, but yeah, I'm just expecting it to be slow. And once I get going, then things will work. So,
Yeah, no, I'd say keep at it, because that's one thing I've noticed as an autism dad. Well, my son Damien, he's going to be huge. I'm probably like 6'2", like 190 pounds, but my son's going to be like 6'5" and like 300 pounds. He already weighs 175 pounds and he's 12, and so he's actually been my big motivation for like getting super strong, and probably gaining, like, I need to gain like 20 pounds. So
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, I know the training side of it, and it is very helpful because it's, especially, your younger one, you do have to carry him around, or maybe you have to carry him, out of places. And for the longest time, I was the only one that could actually pick up my son, because our routine for going to bed originally was like, okay, we need to sit down at 7 p.m., then we got to put on How I Met Your Mother on repeat, and he'll go to sleep in like an hour and a half to 2 hours. Then I have to pick him up and I have to like carry him upstairs or something. And so he was my fitness regime for quite a while. Then he got over once he got over 100, I was like, I don't think this is safe anymore. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
had to switch the
That
routine.
that'll definitely give you motivation to stay in shape. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, so that's really good, and I'd say keep going and whatever you can do, because I think a lot of times it's hard to be like I want to get out there and build a business or make a bunch of money or whatever, but it's like now a lot of times your best use is watching your kids,
Yeah,
being attentive and you'll figure that other stuff out,
yeah,
hopefully, and this is,
yeah,
I've had the luxury of having been in business a bunch and I've had jobs. And so it's always something that I can do, but I think it's good that you're around as much as possible. If
yeah.
that's something that's doable. So way to go with that.
Yeah, I kind of decided too a little bit that my mental health is kind of more important because I try to do a lot of stuff online. Like I have clients online as well, and I try to be more out there in that aspect. But I just hated myself after a while, and because I just felt like I was always uh, doing things and not really relaxing, and then dealing with my kids, and yeah, I was like, no, that has to stop.
No, I'm glad you did that because the mental health side, because well, we're guys. It's like, hey, well, if it
Yeah,
gets tough, I'll just get tougher. And
yeah,
with the mental health side, is it will eventually break you. Like you just
yeah,
can't go. And it's, I've had a few times in my life where just like I have to stop now because I'm going to fall apart if I don't get something to counter all this stress. And so for me, I went to, I started going to therapy, Bible groups, church on the weekends, meditation, breath work, cold dipping, contrast therapy, grounding. Like I just went through
nice.
all of the things, and I was like, eventually I got a routine down where it's like, okay, here's my coping mechanisms. And I think the hardest part of the situation you're talking about is the time, because you're like, well, I should be helping more with the kids, or I should be doing more with the house because for whatever reason. But no, it's really good for you to acknowledge that that's a vital part of it, and it's just as important as you helping everywhere else. So I respect you for that. Do you have any tips in regards to like how you're doing it, the mental health part?
Well, for me, it's exercise, and I've been learning Spanish for the past
Ooh.
4 years, so that kind of uh, puts me in another spot too. So just kind of, and I think a huge thing is support. So, like if you see that your significant other is struggling, kind of help them in a way, but it's hard. I'm not gonna lie.
No, but well, I think you're right though. It is about that the support systems and then and you're really just acknowledging it, because I think the worst thing you could do is say like, no, this isn't hard and I can keep
Yeah,
pushing it and there's nothing I can't do. And it's like, yeah, for a while, but
yeah,
we're getting older. And it's like,
yeah,
you always hear that from like the older guys, like, I used to have that kind of energy too. And you're like, well, you just don't train hard enough anymore. And, but then you actually get
yeah,
older and you're like, nope, I'm just more tired than I used to be. And that's just how it is. In a way, it's not a well, when you need the energy, it's a bad thing. But on the other side of it, it's like, man, I'm so much more calm than I was, like say in my 20s. And so there's good and bad parts of it. But I think what you said is right. You have to have the support systems. You have to worry about your mental health. And at the end of the day, it's not again, it's not a selfish thing because you have to be here to
yeah,
help.
yeah. And I feel really, really bad for my wife because like um my oldest and my youngest, they ask my wife for everything. Like that's the safe person, and for whatever reason, they don't want to deal with me when they have a freak out or whatever. And yeah, it's that really hard on my wife, and yeah, I don't know what to do. It's hard.
Oh, well, you know what? You just acknowledging that is really good. And then for me, because that was well, it is still largely our situation. Like both of my kids always go to my wife,
Yeah,
but Damien especially would only focus on her. But in the
yeah,
last, I would say year, maybe 2 years, like I've tried to like inch my way in there where I'm like he will come to me more often than definitely he used to, and we'll hang
yeah,
out, and I'll be the one that'll sit in the room with him, and it's been really good. And you're right. I mean, it's hard on the wives because she would say it. She said, "I'm just drained. I'm just being attacked all the
yeah.
time, and I've never having moments to myself." I'm like, okay, so I would try to take my sons out. Like I'm like, all right, well, you got the afternoon. I'm gonna take the kids out. You do whatever you want, and the hardest part for my wife was just like, all right, I need you to do nothing if you can, but then they'll
Yeah, yeah,
use that time. They're like, well, I haven't done all this
yeah.
stuff and now I have time. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you have to just do nothing. But that's great you realize. And I think the best thing you could do is just like with the other kids, just try, just
Yeah,
try to do it. And it works eventually. It just takes years sometimes.
yeah, for sure. So, do you and your wife, do you guys have like any support to deal with Declan? Like, can you guys uh go away for a weekend here and now, or no, not at
Yeah,
all?
well, for the longest time we didn't have any, but then we found our church, the Ridge in Austin. They had what they call the Embrace program. So for the longest time, we got 1 hour a week off, and that's when we went to church, and they had one-on-one, essentially daycare for special needs kids. And that
Yeah,
was incredible. Actually, it got me back into my faith and the community
yeah,
and all those different aspects just for that 1 hour a week. And then we also did a respite camp called Camp Camp. And Camp was like a 5 day camp. Again, one on one, like a therapist is with our son for the 5 days. And the whole
yeah.
point of it is basically like, hey, you go, parents go away, take your time off, and then it was that week once a year. And so yeah, that's and then here and there we'll try to like get the grandparents to watch the kids for at least a weekend. Like, but we do like rapid trips. Like we'll be like, all right, we got 36 hours. We're flying to New York, and we just like to eat food in New York. So we'll just walk around and eat food, and then fly back the next day.
Yeah.
And so we just take where we can get it. Do you guys have support that allows you to do anything like that?
No, not at the moment. Just my mom with Alex, but that's only a few days, and then after basically the second day, he would want to come back home. Like we haven't really gone on a really good vacation in a long time.
Hmm. Well, I definitely think try to figure it out if you can. I'm not sure about what kind of programs they have in Canada, but usually there are some type of like respite programs where it's
Yeah.
specifically for your exact situation, where it's like you have to have some time off. Like it's just not good for anybody if
Oh, yeah.
you're 24/7 forever.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really interesting to me. My wife is on a bunch of groups on Facebook, and you guys, the Americans, seem to be far more ahead than Canada and how they deal with neurodiversive kids or people that have autism. It's mind-boggling.
Oh, well, that's actually great to hear because sometimes
Yeah,
it varies state by state. Like, so you'll have some
yeah,
states that'll have a lot. Like California has a ton of support for special needs. Texas
yeah,
has less, and then I think states like New Jersey have like a lot. And then it varies between like disabilities and ages, what they'll do. But yeah, it's definitely worth looking into. Come on down to America. I'm not sure if right now is the best time, but
Yeah,
someday.
like we were fighting with my youngest for him to get the proper support through our healthcare system, and yeah, like I said right at the beginning, they have it in their head that they think autism is just kids that don't talk, and
Mm.
that's not the case at all. And we were trying to tell them that it's more behavioral based. And so this month-long process is turning out to be they're just kicking us out, and then we're going to a private place now, and it's like, really?
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's my wife again handled a lot of that side of it, but it took
Yeah,
months and I'm trying to think of like the actual term. I think it was around like a year and a half to go through
yeah,
all of the tests, and then it was this constant back and forth, and it could be this, then you have to eliminate that, and then like Fragile X was one of them, so we had to do genetic testing, and then like, oh well, maybe he's deaf, and so we had to do deaf testing, and then it was just
yeah,
stuff on top of stuff. And it's hard because there are parents that think it's autism, and then they essentially have made this process necessary in order to confirm that you're autistic. But I'd say just keep going, keep trying. Like that's one thing I'll say about my wife is she never gave up. She's just like, there's an issue, we need help, and we need this diagnosis to get the help we need. And she just kept on pushing. So I'd say keep going. It's and I have no idea what the Canadian process is for this. But yeah, and just I what we're hoping to do with this podcast is really generate some exposure for the situation, so it's not
yeah.
so like, oh, it's just one thing is autism. It's like, no, it's there's so many different sides to
Oh,
it,
yeah,
and
yeah,
each one, well, just like your two sons, have
yeah,
versions of autism, and they're totally different, like almost
yeah,
opposite of each other. So
yeah,
it's tough,
exactly.
but I do think there is some more exposure coming to it, and hopefully in the next few years it'll just be more regular. And now that we're not locked in our houses, we could actually hopefully get some exposure for the kids and for neurotypical people to see it. So thank you so much for coming on this podcast, because I think that's what people need. Then we'll just share it a bunch, and at least we can find each other.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was really cool how this came about. So thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate your time. I feel for you and your family. I think you're doing an awesome job. Keep on going, and it's worth it. The kids are worth it. It's a little tiring, to say the least.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, I think everybody appreciates it, and it's our job, and so we're going to do it to the best of our ability, and hopefully we could just help each other in the process, so we're not so alone in the fight.
for sure. Thanks for having me on again.
No problem. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. This has been the Dads and Autism Land podcast, where we talk everything fatherhood, parenting, and just what it's like to, be raising autistic kids, showing that you're not alone in the process and that we're all here for you. So tune in next time.